Wham! Hey, how you doing? My name's Mike. Welcome to the Sunday night chat. I'm doing this pretty early, actually. Typically I do this around 2 o'clock, but I've got a friend coming into town, Aaron. Aaron Spoolstra. He is our, what do I call him? The Viking wizard Astrovan guru. He's owned like, excuse me, I think he's had like 8 Astrovans. And he's helped me out quite a bit. He was one of the few guys in the forums on Facebook early on when I started working on my van, who helped me out with like actual practical good advice. He's an interesting guy. He's a giant, redheaded guy, like a Viking, man. And I actually think he probably does Renaissance fairs. He's married. He lives in Chicago. He just drove a rental van out here with a bicycle and a 6-foot trailer that he's going to tow behind a bicycle. He's going to ride, I guess, from Santa Monica Pier along Old Route 66 all the way back to Chicago. So you'll see that tomorrow. I think I'll do a video with him as he leaves because he's going to spend the night here. Anyhow, the point is he's on his way, and I got to get this out of the way. I can't do this when he's here. I actually, this week, I've got 2 pages of like bullet point scribbles here that I wanted to talk about. And then this morning, I ended up with 3 pages of notes that I kind of want to go through with you guys just to kind of keep it on track, because you know me. And this is going to be like a Trump speech. Like he's reading a speech, and he goes off on a tangent, then he gets back to it. Excuse me. That's what's going to happen here. I haven't spoken a word. And since like, I don't think I talked to, well, I did a video yesterday. Other than the video I made yesterday, I haven't spoken to anybody. And it's early, so this whole thing with the Sunday night chat thing was just fun. It was just something that happened. I was telling stories, and it's been a good thing. But ever since the Trump win, it's become more of that, just because of how this is affecting life, our everyday life here, right? I prayed for it. I prayed to God. I did. I was like, my God, we need something. This is crazy what's going on. After all the last 4 years of all the crap that we saw, and really the pandemic kicked it off for me. And even before that, for years, I was just having issues with politics. And it seemed evident to me that we know now, for sure, 100%. All the things I thought and said years ago and building up to this is 100% accurate. There has been a dark force, this bureaucratic shadow government, if you want to call it that, whatever you want to call it, that's been undermining the Constitution, right? And keeping the system from working the way it was intended to work. We're seeing all this stuff. There's somebody in my hallway, my neighbor. I did that whole video on why normies can't get along with loonies. Look that video up. So, these things that I prayed for, one of them was to get rid of the Department of Education, because I've seen it. I was alive when it happened, when it kicked in. I was a kid. I remember it being a thing, and then I've discussed this ad nauseum, so I don't need to get into it here, but it's been a problem for a long time. So I'm glad that that's getting taken down, dismantled, and all that good stuff. I'm happy about that. I'm happy that Doge has happened and the Elon thing and all of that. It's just, it's, I have to read. I'm reading because I want to stay on point here. You guys aren't used to seeing me be like even somewhat professional. But Elon was a surprise to me. I didn't expect this to happen with him and Vivek, doing this whole Doge thing, but it's been wonderful. Now look, has it been 100% great? No, of course not. It'll get better. We're only a couple months into this. So you got to cool your jets and let things settle. It's just that I'm going to go off on tangents here because I want to stick to this, but I want to get to it because we're getting into this. Look, you know, the it's nothing I haven't said already, but we know now, in large part, the media has been paid for with your tax dollars through USAID. They've been funding all sorts of crazy things, and the money, other monies that come to that fund like these organized attacks and stuff on, like right now Tesla, right? It's crazy. It reminds me of 2020, the summer of 2020, BLM and all that, and they burnt cities down across this country, riots everywhere. It happened here. I watched it happen. And that was all organized and funded. And Chuck Schumer, I'm going off, it's on here, but I'm going out of order. But Chuck Schumer, I just watched him. He's admitting that this is organized, and it's all about taking down Trump's popularity. And the left, initially, when it came to social media, ran that from the jump. You know, that's what Twitter was all about. It was a place for them to spread their nonsense. And Elon came along and saved us. He saved free speech. That's a good thing. And now we're seeing the shift in social media, but the left still knows how to use it. What they're not good at is dealing with ridicule of themselves. And they've lost the meme war, because their stuff is, their side, what they're putting out there is not based on common sense and facts. It's about emotion. It's about getting people emotionally off balance so they can program you with bullshit. And there's tons of evidence of this even in the past. And I have to bring this up because, you know, the JFK files have been released. Now, what we're finding, and this is interesting, I didn't even write this down. I'm going off on a tangent. Excuse me while I scratch the inside of my nose here. What am I? I'm so pro. Tucker Carlson did a thing when he was still on Fox, and this was kind of like the end of him being there. So you know that there's something to it. He was talking about Watergate and Nixon, and he let the cat out of the bag on this that most people didn't know about, which was the whole thing. Like, so Nixon, there's audio recordings of him asking who shot John. He was talking about Kennedy. And after that, they got rid of him. And the thing about Watergate was every guy that was part of Watergate was a CIA member. And that was a setup to take him down. And then Ford, who was put into place, our only unelected president, was also sat on the Warren Commission. That's the commission that lied about the whole investigation as to who shot Kennedy and kept a lot of things suppressed. And I had heard a long time ago a scenario idea that Oswald was possibly a CIA officer. Well, it turns out that's actually the truth. And that's what a lot of the files, that's what's in the files that weren't released to us until now. And that's the reason why he was in Cuba and Russia and all these places. And it turns out he was taken, and he was in the Marine Corps in Japan. And that's when he was recruited by the CIA. And one of Oswald's officers says that in these released files. I saw it happen. I saw him get recruited by the CIA. So likely he was kind of being set up as a patsy for something, right? Long before that, because that's how the CIA works. So we know that that's all true. And it's interesting when it comes to Woodward, right? Because Woodward, he was, I think he was an intelligence officer in the Navy. I could have that wrong, but I think that's correct. And he gets out of the Navy, and then he's on the biggest story there is, Watergate. And he becomes rich and famous and everything else. So what does that sound like to you? Well, that's the government doing their thing again. So all of this is orchestrated, is what I'm trying to tell you. And I think that's the big reason why those records were sealed, because it would reveal a clear line of, hey, CIA is doing this, getting these people in there, creating these scenarios, putting out false information, because they own the media. CIA owns the media. They're in everywhere. They're everywhere in the media. And that's why everything on the left is scripted. All right? You have to understand this. You know, not Elon, but I saw Jordan Peterson. He was asked, you know, about these people making the videos where they want to kill Elon Musk, or they want to destroy Tesla and Teslas. And you're seeing these crazy videos. I posted something that a guy I know who's a doctor, established guy, wealthy individual, Um, his Tesla was vandalized recently, and he did a little rant about it, calling these people crazy, but they're brainwashed. And so it's the same thing with the shooters, right? The people who shot Trump or tried to kill Trump, and this is what the media does. They have blood on their hands. They're the ones responsible because they put this bullshit out there, and that gets into these weak-minded brains, and then people start acting out on it. And when you're calling somebody Hitler and saying all these things, well, now this is propaganda, right? Which also comes from us, Woodrow Wilson. Apparently, Goebbels learned everything he learned about propaganda from Woodrow Wilson. it's it's so crazy, man. So we're being manipulated. I'm not. Many of you here are not. Some I had been when I was younger. When you're young, you don't know anything. You're too busy. I was too busy fucking, man. That's what I was doing. I was having a good old time. Didn't care about anything that was going on in the world. And then all of a sudden one day you're like, it's affecting you personally in some way or another. Mostly with taxes, overpaying for things. You're like, what the hell's going on? You start looking at how the world's being run. You're like, what the hell's going on? Like, once things aren't making sense to you, you start seeking out information. The problem is that most of the information we were seeking out in the old days was bullshit. I've pointed this out before, and I've told these stories. I've given examples of when I was young and watched particular news stories where they created a narrative. I've done this already. I don't need to get all into this again. But Jordan, he he gets into this thing about, they're narcissists. That's what they are, and anybody in front of a camera, you could label them as a narcissist if you feel like that makes sense. You could call me that. I don't really feel like I fit that category if you really break down the psychological definition of a narcissist, but I get it. It's fine. But I think he's wrong. I think they're brainwashed by what they're watching. That's what I think is going on. It's like a mass hypnosis. And it's funny because this past week I watched the first 2 seasons of True Blood. When that was on, remember when that was on HBO? I love it because it's all about sex and violence, 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 sex. Sorry. I know a lot of you guys haven't heard that song before. It's a killer song. It's all they say the whole song. Sex and violence, sex and violence. It's my punk rock days, man. Was that the Cramps or T-Rex? You guys tell me in the comments. I can't remember, but anyhow, that's what that whole thing was. But in the last episode of season 2, vampire Bill Compton, he points out, he has this line where he says, well, suke. 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 Which happens to be the name of Sabo's wife, by the way. I meant to ask him about that. Anyhow, he points out that all humans are susceptible to all forms of mental manipulation, something along those lines. And it just jumped out at me like, yeah. And the vampires, in the show, it's a TV show. I'm not into the vampire thing. I think I'm looking at it now like, what the hell? How do people, they got the pale makeup on, It's just so corny. It's a soap opera for adults with sex and violence, sex and violence, sex and violence. The nudity and everything, it's great. That's why I watched it. The women in that show, holy crap, man. It's fucking amazing. So... But the thing that the vampires do, they call it glamouring. And glamouring, I looked it up. It's a spell. I think I wrote it down. I'm jumping ahead here. Oh yeah, no, it's right here on the first page. So glamouring, a magic spell or illusion. That's the original kind of definition of glamour. And then we have this term, glamorous. And this refers to like the beauty of people and style and fashion. Actors, actresses, people like that, they want to be glamorous. Well, being glamorous is it's like a magic potion that people use to convince you of things. And this is something that the media use. This is why celebrities are being used all the time to spread this nonsense propaganda. Most of them are paid for their opinions that are scripted for them. And actors are professional liars. And news people that went to school for communications, took a lot of theater classes, and they're on TV. The ones that are on TV are there because they most likely wanted to be, a lot of them wanted to be actors or actresses. That's what's going on here in large part. So I just thought it's the point I wanted to make here by bringing up True Blood and all that, which, by the way, there's a woman who I watch it now in a different light because I knew this woman. She's interesting. We kind of dated on and off for years, and she was the set dresser on that show. And so when I watch it now, I'm like, oh yeah, that's her touch, man. Like, she's very talented. She's very good at what she does. So it's fun for me on that level as well. But what I'm finding is, and you'll see this with the rest of my notes here, I have all these diverse interests. And from time to time, as I'm going down a rabbit hole on a particular interest, I'm going to give you a good example, which I also wrote down. Tying in perfect. Sometimes there's an overlap with other things I'm interested in, and it helps solidify all these thoughts in my brain to where I can see things clearly, and it all makes sense. And it's just funny, I'm watching that, and I'm watching an entertainment show that's really all about sex and violence, sex and violence, sex and violence, sex and violence, sex and violence. I'm sorry, but that's just, when that tune comes on and I'm working, I'm like, yeah, that's a good workout song. Mix that in with some of your AC/DC, you know. Maybe a little Beastie Boys, you know. The Ramones, New York Dolls, Iggy Pop. Like, get all that stuff going and you will get a pump, man. And to bring that home, this point home, I was watching something on watches the other day. And it was, the guy did the history of the Japanese watch market. And it was really interesting because initially, you know, Japan was discovered, you know, by us in the 1800s. And they were, you know, the feudal system was still going, samurais and shit. I mean, it was crazy. And the rest of the world had electricity in some cases. So, or maybe that hadn't happened yet. But the Industrial Revolution had happened everywhere else. And so they were this island that was discovered, and they quickly wanted to elevate themselves to join the rest of the world with technological advances. Like, they didn't have clocks. So clocks were introduced to them. And it's interesting because initially you jump into the early 20th century, late 19th century, early 20th century, and Japan started making their own clocks. And eventually the watch thing happened. And when the watches were happening, they were all being imported from Switzerland. And Japan they eventually, once they started having their own watch companies or manufacturing their own watches, they put tariffs on all the watches coming into Japan from Switzerland, a high tariff, which slowed the pace of them being flooded by imports, which allowed their businesses to produce and their people to buy their own products. So this is evidence of a country using tariffs to support the growth of their own nation with a particular economy, like a particular job, we'll say, or business. I can't think of the right word. You know what I'm saying? Industry. So like with us, we used to be a great steel manufacturer, aluminum, all these things, the cars, everything else. And that was slowly given away to other countries by unelected bureaucrats, as well as people that were elected that were working with people in other countries. All these things that were happening, and the whole EPA thing happening, which is a good thing overall. We need clean air and clean water, but let's be honest, a lot of the stuff that they have you do is ridiculous, to the point where it stifled our industrial growth because you couldn't keep up with the regulations and what they were charging and fees and fines and all these things. And they could have just, and nowadays we have technology where we can do a lot of this stuff a lot cleaner than we did in the old days. And it wasn't that in the early days people were purposefully trying to pollute things. They just didn't know about it. They just didn't think about it. It's like when surgery started happening. They didn't know about germs. You know, like you learn, you adapt, improvise, overcome, right? Well, something they taught us in the service. And that's what you do. That's what they did. And things eventually get better. That's why you got to slow your jets a little bit on everything that's happening so quick. I'm just saying, all these things I see in my normal research into different things ties everything else together. So I'm here to turn a gear in your mind so you'll study things and get it and see the clear picture so you are less susceptible to bullshit. All right, where am I going here? Because the media, that's what they're doing. It's a magic spell. That's what that is. It's a magic spell. And I've told you how they do it. They show you an image, they show you a couple seconds of a soundbite out of context, and then some talking head is narrating an idea into your mind. And then these people believe it. And then they hate this group or whoever they're being directed to hate so much that some of them will actually go out and act out on it. And the crazy thing about the Tesla stuff is, for one thing, man, think about this. You got brainwashed into believing in climate change. It was global warming, but it's not. Nothing's warming. It's not what they're telling you. They're always lying about that. I've done videos on this before. Man, boy, I took something like 4 or 5, 6 months where that's all I studied. I read the peer review papers, all kinds of stuff, and I'm convinced, and I can back it up, and we can have a discussion on that. What the ice core samples really tell us, in combination with the core samples of the ocean floors. And it's amazing because temperatures always rose first, and then CO2 levels followed. So CO2 is not creating the warmth. Science proves that. And I'm not going to get in that right now because it'll take me off what I want to discuss, but that's a fact. One nice little fact that they talk around. They don't tell you that part of it. Al Gore, all these people, we're supposed to be underwater right now. Nothing they told us is true. So you understand, it's all bullshit. But they brainwash you to believe it. Then believing in that led to all sorts of new industry for green energy and solar stuff. And here comes Elon. Okay, the greenest thing in the world. Let's make these electric cars, which, let's be honest, I wasn't a fan of the electric cars because of the lithium in the batteries and how they get the lithium and all the mining. We can't do it here. We got to do that in other countries where they don't have the regulations we have here. Isn't that interesting? That is some hypocrisy right there. So I was never a fan of that. Even Elon's business, really, with Tesla, I would never own an electric car. It doesn't make any sense to me. In a city where you drive short distances, I'm driving across the country. I'm doing all kinds of road trips. Electric cars aren't great for that. If they have enough power stations, fine, but it takes so long to power it up and everything else. I don't need to get into that. But, come on. So, okay, these people loved Elon, loved Tesla because it was a green company. And it's not. It's not at all. And also, if you do the cost, there's this loss of cost to it because it costs so much money to buy it. And then the batteries only last so long. And the cost to put new batteries in one of these cars is ridiculous. It makes it unattainable. You can't do it. You can't, you could do it, but you'd have to be super rich. And why would you do that? You would just buy the latest technology. So then what happens to all these old batteries? What happens to them? You hear where I'm going with this? So that it was always bullshit. It was always bullshit. But okay. But they believed it. People were brainwashed into believing that this was a great thing. Tesla was a great company. We're going to buy electric cars. All these famous and wealthy people, which, by the way, I like wealthy people because they do buy the latest technology, which is great. I've explained it before because then those companies invest that money back into their technology and how they're doing things and how they're doing business, and they eventually make things way more affordable. But that can only happen if people buy the expensive stuff when it first comes out, and that's the wealthy. Thank you, wealthy people. Thank you. Matter of fact, you should be hiring me more. I need some furniture projects. I'm work slowing down here. So, but they're brainwashed into that. Climate change, now because it went from global warming to climate change, and then Tesla and electric cars, the greatest thing ever. It's what we should be doing. Now they're brainwashed into destroying Tesla cars, burning them. What do you think's happening when they burn these things? What about all those fumes, all those pollutants, all those chemicals going into the atmosphere? And it's not easy to put out an electrical fire, like a fire on one of these cars. When these batteries are burning, you basically it's like an HE round. Right? You gotta let that fucker burn out. You ain't putting that out. You gotta let it burn out. And it's just they're polluting the atmosphere that 2 months ago it was a thing to them. Now it's not a thing to them. And these people are so stupid. The cars have this Sentry mode thing, so there's cameras all around it. So they're capturing these people on video destroying cars, keying them, doing all these things, and now they're getting arrested. And they're saying they can get 5 to 20 years. I guess the 20-year thing is more for like the terrorism thing, because this is Tesla terrorism. That's what it is. It's a terrorist act. This is how the left gets their way. This is what happened at the fall of World War II with the Soviets in all of Eastern Europe. I've discussed this before. People don't know it. I didn't know it till I met a guy that was kidnapped, taken from my father's village when he was very little, brought to Russia to live and help to rebuild their country because they lost so many men during World War II. But what was happening was they always call them the socialists. They went all through Eastern Europe, and they went to all these villages up in the mountains everywhere, and they killed policemen, teachers, priests, anybody that had any kind of authority. They'd take them in the middle of the village and they'd murder them right in front of the whole village. And that's terrorism. That's how communism spread. All right. Back then they called it socialism. That happened. That's what they're doing now. That's what they did in 2020, the summer of 2020. That's what they're doing with Tesla. This is what they do. Oh my God. Yeah. Fear. This is what they're doing. So it's all orchestrated. You should be able to see through it by now. What else do I have on here? It's going a lot faster than I thought. I think. We'll see how this goes. I talked about the glamour thing, the beauty, the bullshit, and everything else, and weak minds. And then I saw these studies. So it turns out white, single, college-educated women they have the highest rate of mental illness in polls or surveys, but they also know it from medical records and whatnot. It's white, college-educated women. And, okay, they're ruining the Democratic Party, these women. I know them. I talk to them from time to time. It's always an interesting conversation. They'll always say, don't you think that... And I go, well, what? I talked to a woman the other day, and I like her. I won't get into it too much with her, but she's cool. Interesting. And she said, well, I'm not sure about this because I went over to somebody's house and they're packing the move because the wife lost her government job because of Doge. I said, well, did you ask what her job was and how much money she was being paid and what kind of work she actually did having that job? Like, did you ask any questions? She hadn't. So, because my thing on that is like a lot of the government jobs are paid more than the private sector, and that should never happen. Government jobs should not pay more than the private sector. Period. That's your tax money, man. It's your tax dollars. So every government job takes money out of your pocket. You have to look at it that way. Every single government employee is taking money out of your pocket because every time you buy something, you're taxed on it. Everything you buy. Every product you buy, gasoline, food, all your services, you're taxed on bills that you're paying, your utilities. It's freaking crazy. So all that money goes to this. But the funny thing is it doesn't just go to pay these people, which a lot of them are fake jobs. We know that now. I'm going off track here, but because I want to get back to this whole thing with the women, because it's just they have a higher rate of mental illness. And the thing with these more left-leaning people is it's all emotion. It's not about actual facts. The facts that they have, that most of them can be just like dismantled because they're factual as long as you work within the framework that they were exposed to accept that as a fact. It's oftentimes, it's like the climate change thing. Like I explained just a moment ago about the core samples, what they really show. So that's what they do. They create this argument, this idea around the facts that they're given so that they can then believe this thing. And it's an emotional reaction. And it's just crazy. These people feel that their emotions override everything else. Because I'm emotional about this, it matters. Yeah, being upset doesn't make you right. Just means you're upset. You could be totally wrong. I was wrong this week, by the way. I got to point this out. I did a video. I changed the title. I rewrote the description. It was how to test if your ball joints are bad. And it was wrong because I saw Scotty Kilmer do it in a video. And I thought, Scotty Kilmer, what you got to do now is you want to check your ball joints. You got to lift the car up. Then you got to grab the wheel here. And you got no. When you grab your tire 6 and 12 and try to move. That's really just testing your wheel hub assembly, see if your bearings are good. And I forgot that. And it's something I always knew until I saw him say that that was for the ball joints. And I thought, well, that's an easy test. Just I brain farted on that. I was wrong. I was corrected in the comments. I thank the people for that. You guys can see that. I can admit if I'm wrong on something. I'm fine with that. But I'm not emotional about my stuff, the things that I believe in. I'm backing this stuff up here with the receipts. But the crazy thing about these women is, page 2. I'm so pro. Okay. Something like 28% of women are medicated for some sort of mental illness. What does that mean? That means like 72% of women are walking around the streets not medicated. That's scary, man. They friggin' need it. This is a fucking issue. I went through the climate change thing already. Oh man, I already got all this. But I can't, this thing, it's piss poor impulse control. This is how you know you're dealing with somebody that's emotionally unstable, is when they've got piss poor impulse control. I see it in my comments all the time. You've got the stuff in your brain that was programmed into your brain. Now you're angry about stuff. And then when you see something, you're triggered. Oh my God, it's a thing. And you get to the point where you will walk up to a car that with the highest technology on the road, as far as I'm aware, with cameras all over it, and scratch a swastika on it. Might as well just smile for the camera. Hi. By the way, the people that are vandalizing cars, I don't think they deserve 20 years in prison. I think that they should be put in jail, though. I do. Because they need to be made an example of, and it's great. The reason why it's great is there's no question that they did it. Here they are on screen. They're on camera doing these things. They did it. So, yeah, it shouldn't be a slap on the wrist and a fine. It should be, and I'm not talking federal prison. If you firebomb a Tesla dealership, if you bomb a car, if you throw Molotov cocktails, fuck you, go to jail for 20 years. Fuck you. You're a crazy asshole. That's piss poor impulse control. But really what that is that's an organized thing. So they'll get to the bottom of that. I already went down the rabbit hole on this. There's this couple in particular that funds a lot of this stuff, and they're part of the George Soros group, and it's a thing. This is not a conspiracy theory. You guys can look into this for yourselves. But the money comes from these hardcore left-wingers. It's insane. Was there something on here? The piss poor impulse control. That's it. I think that's it on that. I think that's it. I was going somewhere. Well, I hate when my brain does this. It's hard to like read a note and then also talk off the cuff because, you know, that's not what I normally do. Oh, yeah. So just like put them in jail. Put them in a regular like county jail for 6 months or a year, you know, depending, and let them learn a real lesson. I saw this. Every once in a while you'll see these body cam videos like on college campuses where, you know, I just watched this beautiful girl, no bra, looked like it was kind of cold to her. So she looked great, but she had there was some guy there with a pro Elon sign or something. I didn't see that part of it, but she grabbed the sign, took it down or whatever. Like she basically assaulted the guy. This is happening a lot. There's a lot of these assaults where somebody will like knock a hat off somebody. And you'll be like, you just hit me. I just hit your hat. No, but you hit me in the head. That's what knocked the hat off, asshole. And then you get your ass kicked. I love those videos. And with this one, the girl's like, she's trying to walk away. And there's an actual police officer there. There's college security there and a cop. And she's trying to get out of it. And they're like, we have you on video. And her whole thing is, well, can't you just let me go? I mean, don't you have a choice of what you want to do? You know, like, you don't have to do this to me. And the cop's like, well, you had a choice. Poor impulse control. Because you're mentally infantile. You've been brainwashed into this thing where it's okay. I watched a video today. It was infuriating. College age people, happened to be a black teacher, And it happened to be a white kid in class, and he's sitting in the front row, and he's wearing a red hat, "Make America Great Again." And she's like, stops the whole class, telling him to take his hat off. She's like, "I'm not taking my hat off. Teach the class. My hat has nothing to do with your job." And she would not do anything until he took the hat off. And she eventually took the hat off his head and threw it across the room. And she's trying to throw him out. He's refusing to leave the classroom. It's all being recorded. And I tried to share it, and Facebook wouldn't let me share it, which is weird because that's still happening, I guess. And but I said with the quote, I said, "This makes me want to go back to school." You guys remember what I said last week? And I can just imagine myself sitting in a classroom with somebody who's just like dumping a bunch of nonsense. Excuse me. Everything you just said is bullshit. Here's why. And how long you been doing this? How many students have you had already? So you've been lying to this many thousands of people, programming their minds, these little sponges of these young people's minds that don't know anything yet, and you're putting these bad ideas in their head, and then they're going, "You know how long it takes you to get deprogrammed?" And many of them never get deprogrammed, man. They can live their whole lives just being stupid. It's crazy. It's fucking crazy. None of this is on what I wrote, by the way, but okay, let's see. And the Schumer thing, you learn a new history, you see the manipulation. So that's what I talked about earlier with Carlson. So we're already on the last page. We're doing pretty good here. So I already talked about Tucker Carlson with Nixon and Watergate and Bob Woodward, that's such a crazy thing. And I have to say this. I had this high school history teacher, Mrs. Fisher. You could not, well, I did. I screwed around in her class, which, really upset her. And she was a nice Catholic lady. Well, your typical school marn. Her hair up in a bun, glasses, older lady. I mean, we say old lady now. I know I got into a mess when I talked about, pretty old ladies. I'm scared I'm going to, crush their bones. That's a whole other thing. She was an old lady to us, but she might have only been in her 50s, But if you were in your 50s in 1984, you looked like an old lady. Right? Like people like us, like me, or Joe Rogan, who's way more jacked than I am. Like we didn't exist really in the 1980s, right? Kind of jacked older guy. There's guys way more fit than I am. Women too. Like there's women are fucking in their 60s, 70s that are jacked, man, wearing fucking bikinis. It's like, holy shit. That's awesome. Like that didn't exist back then. So when you were in your 50s back then, you looked old. You dressed old. You talked about retirement. Your back hurt. You walked funny. You were overweight. You were smoking cigarettes, eating garbage food. You were eating margarine. You want to talk about brainwashed. What the fuck, man? They brainwashed us into thinking that this product that's like one molecule away from plastic is healthier than real butter. And people bought that shit. I mean, that's all about keeping the medical industry going. This is another manipulation and lie and programming that helps big companies produce products at lesser cost where they make more profit, where the product actually ends up poisoning people to the point where they've got to go to doctors because now they've got cancers and all kinds of other issues, heart disease and fat and everything else. It's all like this weird setup. It's freaking, that's why it's great that RFK is here. This is another example of why everything that's happening right now is great, because it needed to fucking happen. I was praying to God, thank you, Lord, you answered my prayers. Thank you. I was praying for this. And it's a rocky road right now. We're only 2 friggin' months into it, and some people are losing their fucking minds, and it's a whatever. Like I've got friends that are losing it, and a couple guys I know, which is weird, but okay. All I can say is slow it down, man. Relax. Let it gel. Let's see what happens. The things that they get wrong, they'll make it right. It's just going to take a little time. Mrs. Fisher was right. She used to talk about Nixon in particular. She loved Nixon. Turns out everybody loved Nixon. I didn't know that as a kid. I was born in 1966. Of course, I knew who Nixon was. I was alive when he was alive. But I was not a political wonk, when I was 5 years old. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't that guy. So But when you start reading the history of it, and that he won with an overwhelming majority, just like Trump just did, and everything else, and you realize he wasn't really a bad guy. They just went after him to take him down because he was questioning who shot John F. Kennedy. And Kennedy, the whole thing with him getting shot, man, he was doing all kinds of. He wanted the information about UFOs to come out, and all that's coming out now. It's really interesting how JFK wanted that stuff to come out. They kill him. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but they kill him. Nixon wants the truth to come out, like who shot JFK. They get rid of him, right? And they formulate this whole thing that he was doing this illegal thing where he was recording conversations, and somehow that was illegal, or it was illegal that he sent people in, which he didn't, into Watergate, the Watergate Hotel, to the National Democratic Committee or whatever that was there for their files, and then that was a big thing, and that came out of the White House, and so, you know, he's this evil guy. Everybody's done this espionage. Everybody's done that shit forever, and they're doing it right now. Right now. Right now. It's happening right now. Sex and violence. Sex and violence. So they railroad him, and they make us all believe this thing that came out from Bob Woodward's book. And this guy he's a CIA operative. All the USAID we know now was the slush fund that the CIA used to fund propaganda in media all over the planet. They're still doing it today, and this is why they're fighting so hard. This is why they're fighting. One, they don't want the truth to come out, which it's too late. The truth is out there. In the age of information, ignorance is a choice. In the age of information, ignorance is a choice. That's what's happening. So if you don't want to believe it, you're choosing to not believe it because it goes against this narrative in your brain that was put there, more than likely in college, or you're listening to Rachel Maddow, that dude. I don't know what that guy's all about, but what the fuck? Just crazy nonsense. There was this woman, interesting looking chick, an Ellen Barkin type, killer figure, tall. Oh man, and she, it's, you know, not to get too. She was married. Her husband was cool, but you know, I guess you guys, some married people have the hall pass thing, or they pick people in their lives where they're allowed to mess around if the other spouse says it's okay. And apparently, I was this guy for her, and she was fun. I wasn't that into her, but she was an interesting person and a lot of fun. And you know, one time, you know, no big deal. A long time ago, by the way. It's over 20 years ago. And then all this time has gone by, and I think it was probably during the first Trump administration. I was interacting with her, I think, just through social media. Excuse me. And she was, I'm like, where are you getting this information? She goes, well, I watch Rachel Maddow. And I go, like, what? Like, first of all, I can't believe somebody admitted that. That's where you're getting your information. Like, you're proud of that. The point of that story is that was the last time I interacted with her. Like, you're too fucking stupid. Like, if I know you're that dumb, you are unattractive to me. Well, although I do have this fantasy of like being with somebody that's like, you know, I find, and I could have done, you know, there's plenty of, I just don't do it because I can't do this. But the fantasy is you're in the middle of it and you're making her happy. She's sweating. There's a smile on her face, and she's getting to that point. I just want to whisper in her ear and go, "Who's your president?" You know, like, "Who's your president? Say it, say it." I have to make that happen. Okay, Mrs. Fisher was right. Yeah, so there have been some polls lately too that are looking good for us too. Like right track, wrong track. More people now think the country's on the right track, so I think that's a good thing. Again, I think we just have to like cool our jets. Now, the other last thing we'll talk about here is what's coming out, and I've watched a few videos on this. It's going to be a tough one. I did a video on that Dan guy from Debunking. If you don't know what that is, Dan is an electrician, but he's a kind of an amateur archaeologist guy, but he's not traveling to these places, but he's just reading all the research. And over the years, he's discovered that many archaeologists are just lying and they're hiding facts, and they're only staying in their lane of what they were taught, and there's a lot of other people out there that are smart people with multiple degrees who've written a lot of books on the idea of like Randall Carlson, Graham Hancock. You know, if you watch the Apocalypse series on Netflix, you know who I'm talking about there. And there's this guy Trent Dibble, who is just a ridiculous looking person. It's so funny. He's an archaeologist, and he wears this fedora hat all beat up. He was on Joe Rogan in this debate with Graham Hancock, and he lied. He was caught in the lies, and they brought back Graham to talk about that, and they put Dan on there. Dan's been on Rogan twice now, and I'm happy for him. Although I'm nervous about Dan because in his comments he kind of shuts people down in kind of a mean spirited way sometimes, and that kind of put me off. So I kind of stopped watching some of his videos lately. I don't think you should be doing that. You know, cult of personality happens, and you start getting successful on YouTube or something. You talk to Rogan a couple times, you start thinking you're a thing. I don't know. You're going to get numbers because once you're on something like Rogan, once you're exposed to the masses like that, people are going to sign up, you know, to listen to what you have to say, and that's fine. But you can't let it get to your head, man. And I'm nervous for him. I think he's doing that a little bit, and I don't want to see that. I just want him to keep doing what he's been doing. At any rate, I'm into these subjects, and the basic gist of it is it's the ancient astronaut theory. Really, look, there's evidence all over the planet, even under the water, of massive megalithic structures. They're there. It's not evidence. It's actually there. People go there. You can touch it. You can see it. It's there. And built with such high degree of technology that we can't even duplicate it today. And one of those things that we all know about is the pyramids. And even Edgar Cayce, if you know, he was this savant guy. He would go in these trances and he would dictate, and people would write down what he said. And he could do it for a person, but he did it for the world. And he talks about the things that they're finding now. And there's this other guy, Christopher Dunn, who wrote a book on the pyramids where he believes this. Christopher Dunn's an interesting character because was he a stone guy? I think he was a machinist. I know that. And when he went to Egypt, because you know, when he retired, he made a lot of money. He retired. I mean, not rich, not like Elon money. But he started going to these places and studying them himself with his own eyes. And if you're a machinist, you've made things, you've used power tools, and you go there and you're looking at this super hard granite that copper tools don't do anything to. And you see things that look like machine tool work or slips, these big arcs. Like he came up with the idea that the two slits in front of the Great Pyramid were giant saws, like circular saws that they ran stones through, which makes sense because there's some stones that have these giant, like an arc cut into them. And when he did the math, it meant that they would have had a wheel, like a saw blade wheel. It was something, I have the numbers wrong. I'm sure I have the numbers wrong, but I think he said something like 30 feet in diameter or something. Maybe it's 20 feet, maybe it's 16 feet. I don't remember, but a giant fucking circular saw that they're pushing stones through. So something was going on. So the symmetry of some of these things, the stone, the material of the stone with the symmetry and everything else, we can't do it today. We certainly can't do it with the tools that they had available to them at the time. And they show these experiments where they drill these holes with a pipe and they put sand in there. Anyhow, the latest is because this new LiDAR technology and other technologies where basically we can x-ray through the ground now and find all kinds. LiDAR, they found all kinds of new civilizations under the canopy in South America. It's blowing people's minds. So we know that people had a high degree of technology going much further back than what we're told. We had the Younger Dryas event that took place that killed off a large portion of all life on the planet, but many people survived, and then we rebuilt after that with amnesia. That's Graham Hancock's thing. We're a species with amnesia. So, yeah, it's happened before. We've probably been destroyed multiple times. It's probably likely asteroids, things like that come down and destroy things. But the point is, they are saying that they found under the pyramid, well, I don't want to get all into, you guys should look this up, but there's like these columns that go all the way down, something like I mean, kilometers into the earth, like 200 kilometers, something like it was crazy amount of. And then there's these pillars that have these coils around them, so it's like springs. And then below that, there are these hollow boxes. They don't know what they're made out of. So that's supporting it, and it's as if you were building a giant skyscraper today, because it would support the building from earthquakes and whatnot. And then between that and the pyramid, there are these 5 things that look like the king's chamber. And of course, the guy Ramaswamy or something. I don't know if that's the guy's right name. No, Vivek Ramaswamy. I can't think of the guy's name. The head Egyptian archaeologist guy. Don't trust this guy. He's been controlling. Here's the thing. Okay, I get that the pyramids are in Egypt, but they got nothing to do with Egypt, anymore. Like that belongs to the world. That knowledge, anything that's there, belongs to the world. They've got to stop gerrymandering the operations, archaeological operations in that area, because there's a wealth of knowledge for us, and it's for all of us. It's not just for the Egyptians that are there today. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's for all of us. It's the same. You look at the wars in Iraq, mainly Iraq. I mean, the amount of stuff that was destroyed is a sin. There's so much stuff that's still there, even, I believe, under the sand, that they're going to find, that are going to help us to understand our past better, which will help us propel ourselves in a better way into the future. I think all of this is being revealed right now, as I mentioned earlier, where JFK and Nixon, I gave that example of where they were suppressed by these people. These are the same people who are suppressing all this information. It's like they're all working in cahoots. It's like, I always say this, the invasion of the body snatchers in my mind is a real thing. I feel like aliens have come down and inhabited the bodies of many of these people that are running shit. And that's their goal, is just to make us all slaves and keep us miserable. It's like they feed off the misery. There's something kooky's going on, because we should all be uplifting one another and helping one another out, and all should be in the search for truth and admitting the truth to one another and cut through all the bullshit. We could all get, and by the way, that doesn't mean you have to have a one world government. All these countries can be autonomous. They could have their own economies and everything, and we could equally work with one another without tariffs at all. You just make deals. No, we don't want that product in here because we want our country to develop that. We could work, we'll pay you for some technology maybe, or what you come in for a short period of time with that product till we could catch up. Because if I'm the president of a country, for my country, my people, I need us to produce those things. Right? We have the natural resources to do that. All we just need help with some schools, some education, so I can develop people here so that they can then start producing these products and creating these industries for our people. So you can have your own flags and your own nationalism and all that, because that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It could be a good thing that you take pride in, that other people in the world look at it and go, oh, you know what, that little tiny country over there in Africa, I think that those guys are awesome, because look what they're doing now. That's what it should be. We should be helping each other out. And it should be truth. Oh, we found this here. We found that there. We found this here. Let's put that. What does that mean? Holy crap. Well, these people existed 30,000 years ago. They did all this stuff, and now they're gone. Why did they disappear? Holy shit. In X amount of years, there's another asteroid that's coming. This cyclical thing that we do every 12,000, 24,000, 36,000 years. We come back into this area where we're bombarded with something that's going to hurt the earth. How about we prepare for that shit? There's underground structures all over the place. Many of them are in the Middle East, Turkey. It's insane what people built thousands of years ago that can house thousands of people and livestock, and all underground. It exists. Look it up. It's crazy. That's what we should be doing. Preparing for that, because it's going to happen again. It could happen. It probably will happen in our lifetimes. It's going to happen again. And much of the life on the planet is going to be wiped out again. And there's going to be some survivors, and they're going to have to build it all over again. That's what the Georgia Guidestones were all about. If you don't know that, I got a whole picture folder on it. On my Facebook page, somebody went in there and blew it up and took it down. And dumb people thought it was calling for the killing of a lot of people, and it wasn't. But it was rules for life, and it did say keep population below a certain number. But that's just because it's easier for people to live in the world in a harmonious way if you try to keep the numbers down a little bit. That's all that was about. But, yeah, I just think that there's much bigger stuff going on out there. And I think it's just a sin, a crying shame that there's some of these global elites, not all of them, but a lot of them are on this wavelength. I talked to you about it before. That book, Our Occulted History by Jim Morris. He kind of gets, they'll go, it's 40 pages, something like that, of reference material. And the gist of his book is that first, I don't know if dynasty is the right word, but the earliest hieroglyphs that we have in Egypt, where you see, you don't have to read it, you don't have to know how to read it, you just look at the freaking pictures, man, which are done beautifully. It's crazy. Where there's giant blue people working alongside normal sized humans, right? And then there's people with elongated heads, and there's babies with elongated heads next to another baby. It looks normal with one with a tail. There's crazy shit going on. And those beings left, probably to avoid being killed by some catastrophic event, but people lived through it. And those people who knew these people, worked with them, basically started running things and called themselves gods and pharaohs and things like this. Well, Jim Morris's book basically traces the bloodlines of the people running the world today. We'll just say like the Rothschilds people and the Bilderberg group type people, the people running the Rothschilds basically own all the banking on the planet, and a bunch of these other families own all the media on the planet, everything else. They can all trace they call them blue bloods for a reason. They could trace their bloodlines all the way back to those humans. That's what's going on. I mean, that's what he says in that book. I'm not saying you have to believe all that, but it's an interesting read with 40 pages of reference material that will then take you to other books and other things to read, which I have this one here. It's called Forbidden Archaeology. It's like a friggin' phone book. You can't read. It's not like something you read. It's a reference book where it just basically gives you all the stuff found up until the point the book was published. That's kind of crazy. Forbidden archaeology. Stuff that was discovered that archaeology shuns, puts it on the back burner. Smithsonian shows up and takes the big head skulls and says they're going to research them, and then they disappear. You never see them again. Even the guy who's on Rogan all the time, and I can't remember his name, but he's got that property up in Alaska where they're finding in this one spot all these mammoth bones and all kinds of wild stuff that shouldn't have existed up there, according to what we were told. And he gave a bunch of it to the Smithsonian. They never gave it back. And it turns out they dumped it into the Hudson River and lied about it. And then divers went there and found the stuff that he had sent to the Smithsonian. So the Smithsonian's in cahoots with this too. But that's because it's a government-funded thing. So the government has been suppressing information from us for a long time. I mean, I can go on and on about. I mean, look at what happened to the Tuskegee Airmen, right? You start going, research conspiracy theories that turned out to be true someday. It'll blow your friggin' mind, man. We're constantly being lied to and manipulated. Yeah. This is a happy Sunday conversation for you. It doesn't have to affect your day-to-day, but you need to know this. And one of the things they use to distract us and keep us off balance from truth is sex and violence, sex and violence, sex and violence, sex and violence, sex and violence. It's one of their tools. Have a great rest of your Sunday. I'm glad you're here. I hope to see you next time. And try to be kind to one another. Uplift somebody. Bye.